Like discovering a hidden algorithm, he began to see it. This moment, when night turned into day, that's when they prayed. The darkest moment came just before first light. And if you could align with that shift, when the darkness became light, maybe your soul could rise with it. In my book, David Rising, I frame Jewish identity not so much as a learning, but as a remembering. This idea that Jewish identity is something that is deep inside of every Jew. So, for example, the main character, David, finds himself after a sleepless night in shul. And the men around him are kind of just standing still. And he says, "Why is everyone just standing still? They woke me up for this." He had fallen asleep. Then, as the sun broke through the windows, the men began to whisper. A flicker of memory, his grandfather whispering, feet together. Ah, thought David, this is what he had been doing. David stood there, watching, not moving. Like discovering a hidden algorithm, he began to see it. This moment, when night turned into day, that's when they prayed. The darkest moment came just before first light. And if you could align with that shift, when the darkness became light, maybe your soul could rise with it. He'd never seen prayer this way, not as words, but as rhythm, as timing, as transformation. So you see here, the men are praying in a netz minyan. That's aligning prayer with the moment of sunrise. And he's beginning to see that this thing that he considered hocus pocus, fluff, is actually part of a much deeper system. And he remembers that his grandfather used to pray. And he's beginning to connect. And he's beginning to see there was a whole system here, not made by men, not taught in business school. One he'd never seen. One that had been running quietly, faithfully in the background of Jewish life. A sacred order, not invented, revealed. And for a man who had built his life on intellect, who prided himself on knowing it all, the realization knocked the wind out of him. So here you see one of the top real estate developers in New York City, Harvard educated, MBA, super successful, coming to realize that there is something that predates us. There's something bigger than us. And he's watching these men in shul, other successful men who have already connected to it, and realizing with humility that there's something here. He's beginning to wrestle with this idea of connecting with something larger than himself. And throughout the book, we see this as he begins to go through his journey, that there's something more than the external success, something more than this canonized version of Western civilization. This is part of the Jewish story, that we all were at Mount Sinai, that there is a whole Jewish path to success. Family, happiness, joy, Torah, and mitzvot. And as he goes through his journey, he learns tools. He learns how to connect with all of this. It's at the very center of our story. It's why, in today's day and age, so many of us are returning to Eretz Yisrael, to Israel, to the Holy Land. Something deep inside of us is connected to that land. And something deep inside of us is connected to the Jewish way of life, to the Jewish people. It's no coincidence that thousands upon thousands of Jews came to Hostage Square to protest and pray for the release of our hostages, our family members. We're all connected on such a deep level. It's at the very heart of our Jewish story, this idea. Abraham Avinu, our ancestor, discovered the rhythm of God in the world. You could call it sort of an intuition, but it was really a receivership. He became a vessel. His antenna was tuned in to understand God and to serve him. He had a deep inbuilt desire to serve God, to do his will. This is inside of each one of us. And we're privileged because the Torah is a tree of life to those who hold fast to it. All of its supporters are happy, as the saying teaches us. That means that when we're willing to break our own egos and to challenge ourselves, to look deeper, we too can become receivers. We too can align with this thing, this way of life, greater than ourselves. It requires us answering that call for that inner curiosity which says, I know there's something more. We're taught that each of us has a spark of God inside of us. And that can manifest as that still small voice inside of us, calling for something more, that innate curiosity. It requires us going beyond 6-second sound bites and scrolling on social media. It requires us picking up real books like the Chumash, the Torah, the Siddur. It requires us being curious and wanting to learn about our culture. In David Rising, David begins to hang around the men at shul, synagogue. He begins to understand that these guys are doing something different than he was taught even at the finest universities. It's an example of being around the right people who are able to act as a doorway and entry point in. I invite you to follow your curiosity, whatever that means. Picking up one book, stopping by one Chabad house, one shul, one synagogue, going to one event, and allowing yourself to walk through this door with curiosity. Our ancestors have lived a special path for thousands of years. We're still here despite so many adversaries challenging us. We have a special mission, a role to play in this world. And the good news is, it leads to happiness and success in this life and the world to come.